it's also one of the things is that I'd never done a full-fledged comic book, so I was not too confident about myself. So, so I wanted to ease my way, but when this opportunity came, I thought, okay, enough excuses. Now it's time to kind of just go ahead with it.
Welcome to Comics with Dan, and on this episode of Up and Coming Comic Artists, we are going to be talking to Som. I was first introduced to Som's work in Crocodile Black, and a 5-issue series from Boom Studios, written by Phillip Kennedy Johnson. So let's talk to Som and see how he got into comics.
Yeah. Uh, I graduated as an engineer first. Actually, it's a little weird, but my dad was a sculptor, so it kind of ran in the family. And I don't quite remember a part of my life where I wasn't drawing. So I always drew, but I guess I when it may when it came to making career choices, I never thought of art as a career. It was more like catch some eyeballs, flirt around with some girls, that sort of a thing. Be the center of attention, and then make more friends, that sort of a thing. Uh, and then post engineering, I guess I was a little, how do I put it? I wasn't. I wouldn't say that I was. Uh, I mean, I wouldn't say it didn't work out, but it was more of a monotonous sort of a thing where you go into a 9 to 5 sort of job and you do the thing. I was working for a bank. I mean, I was in the IT industry, but I was working. My client was a bank, so
Yeah.
that sort of a thing. So I was kind of getting bored of it. So I made a career switch, and I did this 2 years animation in an institute called IDC, IIT Bombay.
Okay.
So they were kind enough to kind of get me in. I was, and from there it was like animation was the thing that I got into. I worked for a studio for a while, and post that I was working with live action filmmakers as well as animation filmmakers. And on the side, it was more of a like because it's visual arts and you dabble with different sorts of medium. So I was essentially doing smaller, like 3 pager to 12 pages for these magazines or anthologies sort of a thing. So I would do
Okay.
these small stories, and it was kind of I was enjoying it, but it is kind of difficult to make a living as a comic book artist in India. I mean, the Indian comic book industry doesn't pay enough to kind of
Yeah.
sustain.
Yeah.
So I was always working with animation and films.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only recently that so I became a father last year,
Oh,
and it had been kind
congratulations.
of, thank you. So it had been kind of going on in my mind that I need to find something where I could devote more time to kind of give me the flexibility to give time to my baby as well as kind of
Mm-hmm.
uh, get work. So I reached out to a friend of mine, and he had been doing comics for a while. His name is Anand Radhakrishnan, and he was kind enough to put me in touch with the guys at Boom, and I thought I just lucked out, because I would have never imagined. Like I was in fact preparing myself to kind of do shadow work, do
Yeah.
inks for people or colors for people. And he introduced me to Boom, and Boom fortunately had a project which they were kind of open to, uh, uh, working with me.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of landed up in comics. Uh,
Yeah.
a couple of years back, Ram had actually reached out to do a comic book together. We were
Hmm.
planning to do this, the second volume of Black Mamba. So we had done a few
Okay.
pages, but I think I'm not exactly sure of what happened. But the publisher, I mean, it got taken over by somebody or something
Mm.
of that sort. I'm not really sure. Ram might be able to
Yeah.
tell you better.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that project just didn't get the green light post that. So, so yeah, it was initially meant to be my debut, but this ended up,
Mm.
Crocodile Black ended up being my first uh, full-fledged comic series.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you how blessed you are to have the first two writers you work with being Ram V and Phillip Kennedy
Exactly.
Johnson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, that's wild.
Yeah, yeah, I lucked out. I tell this to
Yeah.
everybody, I was just fortunate enough to find Philip and Ram. And Ram is a good friend. We have hung around a while, like whenever he visits
Oh,
India.
nice.
Yeah, because he works with Anand very closely. And even when Ram wanted to work, I was always in two minds because I was neck deep in animation and
Hmm.
taking up a full-fledged comic book project. So I was like kind of, you know, uh, how do I be being I was being cautious because it's also one of the things is that I'd never done a full-fledged comic book, so I was not too confident about myself. So
Mm.
so I wanted to ease my way, but when this opportunity came, I thought, okay, enough excuses. Now it's time to kind
Mm.
of just go ahead with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So how did you feel about like the deadlines that you have to hit for things like Crocodile Black? How much of it did you have done ahead of time? How much did you kind of
Oh,
go as you went along, that sort of thing?
I'm really sorry to say I was always behind deadlines,
Oh,
and I don't want to be that guy. But Boom was very supportive, and
that's
I
good.
think I would have been very uh, accurate with my deadlines had
Mm.
I not been a new father. So I had
Yeah, yeah.
completely underestimated the kind of involvement I would have had to make,
Mm.
and with the baby. And the other part was that uh, the baby Adi, we call him Adi, he was a
Mm.
preemie, so he
Okay.
arrived in 7 months. So for the first 2 months he was in the NICU itself, and
Mm.
post that, every now and then, even for the slightest, whenever slightest thing happened, we would panic. So I
Mm.
would like reach out to Boom, that this has happened and we are a little scared, and they would be just kind enough to accommodate. So that was
Yeah.
one of the other reasons why I was constantly like, but fortunately, there were times where I was able to pick up and catch up speed and deliver by
Mm.
the deadline.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was, yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
was a catch up sort of a game, but now I'm a
Yeah.
little better prepared. So I know,
Okay.
and yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that your son's okay and doing well. And I hear you because I have kids myself, and so I know that anything going wrong with them, you just get this
Oh,
like gut feeling, So
exactly. And you freak out because there's no way they can communicate. And
yeah, exactly.
you have to
Yeah.
take them to the hospital immediately.
Yeah.
And that completely. So even a day that you get involved there, that you're, even when you're working, it kind of plays at the back of your mind. So it some way affects,
Mm.
So I was
Mm-hmm.
always catching up. But hats off to all the editor at Boom. Like when I
Mm.
joined, Eric was the editor, but Ramiro came on board post that, and Ramiro and the folks at Boom and Philip, they have all been very supportive.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I hear nothing but great things about Boom Studios. So
Yeah, they're lovely.
that's great.
Let's take a look at Som's art in some detail, some stuff from Crocodile Black, some stuff just from his Instagram, and see what he has to say about it.
This one is one that I wanted to look at of yours because I really liked the way that you had the smoke sort of transform into these eyes and faces, and I see the smoke transforming into like the crocodile teeth on the side there. Um, where do you this is going to sound like kind of a funny question, but where do you come up with these, I mean, out of the box things for these things to happen? You know, like where do you look to for inspiration for stuff like this?
Oh, I mean, I think there's no specific inspiration as such, but you all
Hmm.
obviously get inspired by the works of, like, all my life I've been inspired by the works of, say, Terada Katsuya, Katsuhiro Otomo, uh, uh, Junji Ito. They're all Japanese
Hmm.
manga as well as,
Okay.
anime artists. So there are these. Then there is Master Jungi himself. Uh, so they have always been influences in some way or the other. But
Hmm.
when I was doing this particular piece, uh,
Yeah.
so Philip's writing was very visceral, and one of the
Okay.
things that I was always trying to understand was how to kind of figure out a way to make this world uh, disturbing, not just from
Hmm.
uh, like, make the reader experience it, rather than just being a, you know like, putting it out as a as somebody uh, having a mental disorder. You understand?
Hmm.
We needed the visual representation for the mental disorder itself, so that we could make the viewer step into the shoes of the character.
Mm.
And every now and then, I mean, I think Philip liked some of the drawings that I'd done with smoke. So the cigarette was kind of a recurring theme throughout.
Hmm.
So it allowed me, through the smoke, kind of create these visuals which are disturbing, and at the same
Hmm.
time, it engulfs him. There is this metaphor of things engulfing him. So,
Mm.
and if you notice carefully, basically what I tried to do was, uh, all the murders that he has done so far, the faces were in some ways the remnant of those. So
Mm.
there is the drug lord, the cartel boss, essentially.
Uh,
There is also the his right hand in command. Uh,
yeah.
so I was trying to put them, because in his reality, uh, they are the ones, who had betrayed them or kind of taken advantage of him, and this whole smoke of evil was kind of engulfing him. So that became my
Mm.
metaphor to kind of, and the crocodile by itself was a recurring theme throughout. uh, because up till, I think, the fourth issue, you don't really realize the relevance of the crocodile. You just see the,
Hmm.
him transforming into a crocodile. So I wanted to connect it, and this, I think, is part of the fifth issue by the time the
Mm.
secret is out. So I don't
Right.
necessarily need to kind of, the crocodile can be a little more bony, in the sense, when you are in the jaws of something,
Mm.
so that sort of a thing. So I was constantly playing around with that theme and idea uh, for this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's crazy because I hadn't noticed, but I see it now. The faces resembling the people that he had killed, right? And
Yeah,
it's it's like they're haunting him. It's fantastic.
exactly. So that's
Yeah.
that's the idea. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, this one's a really good one. And then there's it's funny because I think they have another smoking one in here as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
now this one I really like because it's Danny himself transforming, right?
Yeah.
A lot of especially in the earlier issues, I think Danny sees things differently around
Yeah.
him, but this is him this is him seeing himself in a different way, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. Um, so if you can walk me through how you decided when to implement Danny himself, sort of visualizing himself as something different, but also to follow up on your answer to the previous, or your discussion on the previous one, is how much of Philip's writing provides sort of instruction on what he wants to see, or is it more along the lines of like, hey, you kind of have free reign to get the visuals out there, or more of a collaborative process?
Yeah. So in this case, it was kind of so earlier when I had composed this image,
Mm,
surprisingly, it was the character Tony essentially, which was all deranged because I wanted to
mm,
communicate the idea that uh, uh, as he is descending into madness,
mm,
his perception of reality is getting deranged. So you
mm,
see that when this guy Levy, when they are you see it later, right after this particular page where they are driving, and the ghost of Leo essentially falls on Levy's back, and Levy's face kind of
mm,
distorts. So I was kind of trying to put that metaphor of his reality being deranged. So what I had done
mm,
was that only his face was normal, and all the other panels were kind of distorted. And
mm,
and when we were discussing, we kind of realized that maybe it's too early to kind of set it, have this page that way. So then
mm,
when I changed it, I thought then it'll be fun to kind of show him disintegrating, his reality disintegrating in his head. So then what I
mm,
did was I kept everything else normal because that's the reality of the moment, and
mm,
him kind of disintegrating in the process. So this
mm,
becomes the kind of the springboard to the later pages where it constantly keeps his reality warps. So
mhm,
that is how. So this fragmented thing pieces, piecing out or kind of tearing out the flesh, tearing out, was essentially this idea of reality being fragmented. I mean, he doesn't know
mhm.
what reality is now. So that's the metaphor that kind of helped me compose
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And Philip gave me a lot of creative freedom in this. So a lot
Mm,
of times, what happened was that Philip would write it, and many a times, like in some pages, like in issue 3, page 1, like he had written something different. The page was a little different. Danny was
mhm,
supposed to be in his undies, sitting with all the the journals around him, you
mhm,
know,
yeah.
and I kind of, but what he did was he kind of made a note that, make it crazy, as crazy as you want to.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped me, because so you have to understand, because this was my first project, even I was trying to understand as to, what works, what doesn't work, how to,
Mm,
so I was constantly trying to I was second guessing myself, which is I think a part of the process, but I was also trying to understand what Philip wanted, and Philip
mhm,
gave me the freedom to, just visualize. So the final page ended up being quite different. It was as if he was in a bathtub, kind of, uh, with his head submerged, with a part of it coming
mm,
out. And out of that bathtub itself, there are these visuals of uh, the war that Leo was a part of, all the soldiers
mhm,
walking
yeah.
through, and his past hauntings of the crocodile and all of that come through. So he used to, wherever he wanted crazy, he would just write, just go bonkers with what you want to do in this, and that would help me. A lot
Yeah.
of times I would just test my waters. I would try something and see if that would work. And almost, I mean, I don't remember a single time, possibly this was the only page where my first iteration was, they suggested maybe it's a little too early at this stage.
Mm,
Otherwise, for every other iteration, they were very accommodating and saying, it's good to go. So that kind
yeah.
of worked out.
Yeah. No, that's cool that he just said go crazy, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, so some minor direction, and then just make it as crazy as you want is
Yeah, and honestly, that's, as an artist, that's what you want to hear from your writer,
Mm, right.
because once he puts in that confidence, because
Mm,
if you notice, the first issue was a, uh, I I wanted to create this feeling of escalating madness.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I was slowly. how do I put it, setting it up. So the
Mm,
first issue had more surreal bits where he would just see a shoe in his dining table,
mm,
and
yeah.
he's eating out of his shoe, that shoe that he really. And the way Philip had described that page was very different. Uh,
Mm,
he hadn't mentioned that he sees a shoe. It was, but he had mentioned that he's constantly, uh, you know, his mind is preoccupied about the shoe. So at one point, I just made the silhouette of a shoe and uh, tried Danny through it, seeing
mhm,
the character through it. And then for the next page, I needed a different visual. So I thought maybe just put the shoe on the dining table itself. And
mhm,
I think I found a good reference as well, where when you see shoes, when you see open shoes, they have this uh, weird feeling of an open mouth sort of a thing.
yeah.
They sometimes feel that a mouth is open, and I think I did see a reference somewhere where there were teeth in that shoe. So I thought maybe, yeah, I could use that bit to kind of make it even more, uh, you know um, like somebody's uh, uh, kind of biting you and pulling you into
Mm,
this madness. So
right.
that's how uh, I kind of worked it out.
Yeah. No, I mean that's great, and you definitely the escalation in issue one. You guys definitely hit the mark on that. I mean, I remember when I first read the first issue, just like thinking like this is getting weird, this is getting kind of crazy, and then like just crazy stuff happening. Like, um, so the one thing that I was curious about is that there are certain parts of the art that have like the red lines. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, were those added by you and then uh, was it Patricio Delpeche did the
yeah,
colors?
yeah.
But did he add those or did you work those in?
So, I had made them in white, but it was kind of
Mm,
pre-decided that they'll be in red. So
mm-hmm,
what had happened was that when we were discussing initially, and back then I was not fully aware of the where the story is going. So
mm-hmm,
I knew the basic premise, and Philip asked me if I would have some references or something to show where, or a visual to kind of communicate this idea of uh, of his crazy visuals, uh, which is not reality essentially. So
mm,
I showed him a couple of ideas. One of them was inverted, image. When the blacks are the whites and the whites are the blacks. That
yeah,
had a
yeah,
different sort of an effect, like the effect of a negative, or the film
mm,
negative that you see. So
yeah,
and then I had somewhere seen this portrait or something where the around the eyes, there were these red scribbles. So I had
mm,
shown him that reference, that this is one of the approaches, and he quite liked it. So
mm,
we kind of decided that this visual of his brother that Danny sees,
mm,
uh, maybe that could be in these kind of scribbles. So that is how it was one of the things that kind of got decided before the project started. So we were very sure of
mm.
that particular creative call.
Okay, yeah, nice. Yeah, I really like those because it sort of because they weren't there all the time, right? And
Yeah,
it was always kind of a like a skin crawling feeling whenever I'd turn the page and then there would be the red there, and I was just
yeah.
like what's he seeing
And
now? You know?
yeah, and in some of the panels, I mean, I tried my best. I'm not really sure whether I succeeded or not, but the idea was that when you first see it, you might not be able to see it. So the composition had to be
Mm,
changed so that it is not evidently visible. But then when you look,
mm,
you give a second look, you realize, oh, there is a scribble of a kid here. Oh, what is
mm.
this for?
Yeah.
That sort of a thing.
Right.
So, and I think it
Okay.
sprung from the idea that Danny kind of sketches his brother's sketch
Right.
sometimes, on the, so that
Yeah.
scribble kind of, so everything he visualizes, the visual of Danny is essentially that scribble, because he has very faint memories of his brother, not Danny, sorry, his brother. There is this page where I think it's the sixth page or the seventh page from first issue, and
Okay.
he comes out of the basement and he climbs the stairs, and his mother asks, what do you have? And he's like, nothing. And his sister asks, should we watch a film? and
Yeah.
and he's just okay about it. So
Mm.
between there's a panel where, and I had to purposely frame it a little off, so
Mm.
that uh, by the rules of composition, sometimes that there's the rule of thirds. So you don't
Mhm.
want it to be at that position, pivotal position, where the eye goes. So I had to make it a
Mm.
little odd, so that the eye doesn't directly go there. You see the two
Right.
characters and you realize that's the interaction, but then you have a second look, because it's kind of difficult in comics, right? In animation you
Mhm.
can allow things to kind of appear or disappear in a certain way. In
Right.
comics it's all there, so it's
Right. Yeah, so this one, I wanted to get something in that this was not in Crocodile Black.
no,
This is
this was,
something else. So can
yeah,
you
so
walk me through what this is from? And what I really liked about this was, like, I mean, you had just mentioned the use of the inverting the color.
yeah,
So we have
the
the
blacks or the whites and
the
the
white,
black.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So you just walk me through, what this is from. We got another
So
smoking scene
this
again,
is
and
this is one of the pages from Black Mumba 2, which we were doing with
oh,
Ram. So this is
okay.
the central protagonist, and he's kind of at his friend's grave, and he is
Mm,
discussing certain thing. I mean, he's just having a conversation with him, and then you go
mm,
back into how he got killed, and but sadly we were not able to do beyond the first 12 pages. So this
mm,
was, I think, the second page, and
okay.
this I approached as a noir. So
Yeah.
when I approached Crocodile Black, because of the nature of it, because it was not a sleek noir sort of a film, right? It was
Mm,
not a detective crime, or a neo noir
yeah.
sort of a film. So what I did was, I wanted to figure out a way to add uncomfortable grays. So
Mm,
I don't know if it's a common practice in comics or not, but uh, uh, so I did the blacks and I put the grays there as well, which
mm,
made it incredibly hard for the colorist. And I hats off
mm,
to Patricio for kind of figuring it out. But the grays were put so that it should not be completely sleek shapes where the light falls in a certain way. And how do I put it, like uh, imagine the films of David Fincher. The
mm,
lighting is crisp. There is, so I didn't want that sort of a feel. I wanted grace to be at parts where uh, there is light. So it kind of
mm,
breaks that. It makes it a little, like in this, if you see that the side has been crisply lit. But if I had
mm,
to do the Crocodile Black in this, I might have tried something different, because
mm,
it was not meant to be lit so cleanly. So I thought
mm.
it added to the discomfort of the experience itself.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely, I can definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah. So I did really like I do really like the lighting that you're using in this one.
In this one, yeah.
I mean, yeah, and really in Crocodile Black too, but just in this one in particular, what really caught my eye about it was you have the lighting, which is presumably from the moon, right? It's hitting the
Yeah, yeah.
side of his face there, but then also, like, when he's lighting the cigarette, you can see, like, he's got
See
like light
the,
inside his hands. Yeah.
yeah.
So this is,
That's a lot
and
of
I
fun
do
to play
think,
with, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think also what I felt about this one is um that kind of like you said with the grays. It's I guess I can't quite put my finger on what's different about your style here than it is in Crocodile Black. It almost feels like a different brush style or something.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it is. This feels a little more crisp, while the Crocodile
yeah,
Black has sort
yeah,
of a more visceral,
yeah,
grainy feel. I
yeah.
don't
So
know if that
that's
was
also
intentional.
right. I
Yeah.
think that's also because of the medium. This
Hmm.
was done digitally,
Okay.
and that was completely done on paper. So I used a
Okay.
lot of washes and inks because I thought that would do better to the story.
Hmm. Yeah.
This was meant to be a sleek sort of a
Yeah.
detective story itself. So I leant more towards this crisp shapes finding, where the lines lead you in a certain way. So
Yeah.
if you kind of blur your eyes, the whole point is that you see this arc happening, with the
Mm-hmm.
grave, the silhouette of the whites, and then the light on the hand, and then that connecting to the smoke, and then uh, going into the light of the face. So you see the eye kind of flows in a certain way, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was the fun in this. Whereas in
Yeah.
Crocodile Black, it was meant to be a little more mad,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
disturbing,
Yeah.
and yeah. So
Yeah. So how do you feel about working the differences between working traditionally and digitally? There's obvious advantages to both, but um I guess how do you decide what you do traditionally, what you do digitally, and so on?
oh, so this one, I think I'd set off with. I mean, I'd set out with the idea that I'll be doing it traditionally. I'm not married to a particular medium. It's
Hmm.
just that whenever I have this gut feeling that this inks and washes will be a better idea,
Hmm.
then I'll go ahead with that. Uh, and if I have to get this sleek sort of a thing, then possibly, even if I have to do this with watercolors, then I'll have to use a different kind of paper, a different kind of. I'll possibly use markers to achieve this, because markers,
Hmm.
they don't, when they dry out, they kind of don't keep patterns, whereas
Hmm.
washes, they kind of, how do I put it? They create these rings of uh, dark and lights.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
so that kind of allows me. So if I had to do this traditionally, maybe I would have gone with markers or something, kind of block the
Mm.
shapes and just, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
yeah.
this is from Crocodile Black. Um,
This is issue
I
3,
mean,
page 1. This is the page that I was talking about, where he's in
yeah,
the
that's right.
tub,
Yeah.
where he asks me to, Philip asked me to just go bonkers, and that is where I realized, okay, I can do anything, So I just the eye kind of gets into these weird crocodile eyes.
Hmm.
Not even morphs, but bubbles up into these crocodile eyes to create that weird sort of a feel.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
all of this, the kind of inputs I got from Philip were very clear. Like he wanted a war-stricken or uh, uh, and not an apocalyptic, but I think his clear reference was the world of The Last of Us,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that, where everything's abandoned,
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was a very comfortable reference for me. Like when I have that sort of a clarity, then I know as to how I want to build this world. So
Yeah.
the first page, I think not for the first issue, but the second and the third, and now I don't remember maybe even the fourth. Yeah, even the fourth page, fourth issue. Sorry, the first page of the second, third, and fourth issues all started with these dreamlike things where he
Hmm.
dreams something, and
Yeah.
it progressively kind of gets wilder.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and if I recall, um, Patricio's colors on this particular page,
yeah,
and actually, I think maybe the other. dream pages that you're referencing, he uses almost this like sepia tone
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
So
just
we,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah. This was one of the things we discussed as well, that this should look like a dream, so let's not go ahead with
mhm,
natural colors. Let's go
right.
ahead with something which is completely off. So
Mhm,
he came up with this brilliant color palette which is orange, and he would put
mhm,
greens somewhere where you wouldn't expect them. So yeah, it worked out
right.
brilliantly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean this. Yeah. This one's. I mean, it's definitely one of the wilder. I don't even know if I'd say it's one of the wilder because there's just so many wild pages in these books. It's up there though with one of the
Yeah.
crazier ones in
Oh,
the book,
and
especially when you just the longer you look at it, the crazier stuff gets. It's just like
I I'm so glad to hear that, because I think all of us had set out for that. So it's kind
yeah,
of comforting to hear that it works that
yeah,
way. And honestly, it's only because it was my first kind of comic book. So by the fourth, fifth issue, I started to get more ideas. And then I
yeah,
was like really reaching out to Philip, like, you need to do a second issue, so that
yeah,
I
yeah,
could put
second, yeah,
more of these crazy ideas somewhere. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm not really sure about that at this point of time, but
yeah,
yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully, if it comes, I'll be happy to kind of
yeah,
explore this world further.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that one of the things that I loved most about Crocodile Black is that I don't think I've ever seen a creative team more in sync with each other than you guys were. I mean, just the way that I mean, the sort of the dialogue that Philip put out was just it was sort of simplistic, and it made the reader sort of think about or kind of fill in the blanks themselves, right? Rather than like over narrating, right? And then obviously you're completely just crazy situations and art style, and then Patricio's the colors that he's using, especially when he's flipping from different scenarios, and then down to Becca's letters.
Lettering, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Her lettering is really fantastic,
I mean,
and
no matter how
yeah.
much I appreciate, I feel Becca's lettering will always be the most understated in this. Like, for some reason, I no matter how much you appreciate, I don't think
Mhm,
she gets enough credit, is what I feel,
mhm,
because
yeah,
her letters actually make it. They kind of bring everything, all the zaniness and the madness, and she manages to bring it to the letters, and
mhm.
connect everything together. And
Yeah, well, and that's what I mean is that
yeah,
like it seems like all of you were very aligned on what the vision for this was, you know? It's not
and
like letters were slapped on, colors were thrown in. It was collaborative. At least that's the way that it reads. I mean, I imagine that
and
you all worked very closely
I
together on
think
this.
I think I need to credit everybody on this, because everybody started on the right note from day
Mhm,
one. Uh, the thing is that we never kind of sat together and kind of shared that you need to do this and you need to do
mhm,
that. The moment Philip's kind of pages came in, and
mhm,
I have another anecdote. I'm not really sure if I'm right or not, but I'll share that anecdote. But the I whenever I created the visual, like, Patricio was sure as to what he wanted to do. We never had
mhm,
to revisit anything and go back and
mhm,
change. Maybe once a while there was a certain thing where, I don't know, maybe the color of the snake. I don't even remember. It was something that we had to maintain a certain continuity. That would have
mhm,
been the case in colors. Otherwise, we never had an issue with the direction that Patricio was taking. And Becca
mhm.
was like, yeah, she was just belting it out of the park every time.
Yeah.
And the anecdote is that when I think it was the second issue, and there is this whole world where the buildings are collapsed, and there is this,
Mhm,
it's all flooded. If I'm not wrong, the poem that was written,
mhm,
I have I've seen, it's on these lines. I've seen everything. I've seen monsters, and you know, and it's a
Yeah.
little poem. I don't know if it is a song or not, if
Uh-huh.
it is an actual song or not. But I have a feeling that it was not there in the draft that I received. I think
Mm,
Philip kind of took that as he had it in his mind maybe, and
mm,
he just composed it. And when I looked at that page, everything made so much sense to me.
mhm,
The whole the poem made sense to me. It actually took it to another level for me. I mean, I had done the page, imagining the script was this, but then when I actually read it, I had a very visceral experience.
mm.
So yeah, hats off to
That's got to
Philip.
be
And
crazy to have that kind of
yeah,
experience
I mean,
with a book that you worked on. Yeah.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
so for me, the visuals don't really make it after a point, because I've been through the visuals a lot. The colors obviously are a different part, but I've been through the visuals, so they don't reach out to me the way it would reach out to
Mm,
somebody who's looking at it for the first time. But the moment
right.
I read that poem, it was
Mm,
heartbreaking. I was like, oh man,
yeah.
this has
Yeah.
made it, that sort of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's yeah. I mean you guys all knocked it out of the park for sure. So this one, um, this
This is issue one.
one's. I was gonna say yeah. This is early
Or
on.
this
Yeah.
is issue one or issue two, I think. This is
I think
issue
this is
two. Yes,
two. I
yes,
think it's
this is issue
two
two.
because they're at the. This is where he goes to the
At the
bar and then
bar,
he meets
yeah,
that guy. Yeah. This is where
yeah,
he first pretends to be Leo Black.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah. So now that I think about it, like you had mentioned before, I think I had it flipped around where Danny sees himself differently more early on and then later starts seeing the things around him warp because you can see here and then in the one we looked at before that
So,
he
so there are
yeah
different interpretations as well, right?
yeah
So there is
yeah
this idea of being possessed. Then there is the
mm-hmm,
idea of seeing something warped, or this descent into darkness.
mm-hmm,
Then there is this the visuals that he's seeing essentially. So all of these are different kind of craziness, and
mm-hmm,
I was trying to constantly figure out different ways where I could represent that. So this was more of an idea of him being possessed.
mm-hmm,
uh, so whenever he gets possessed, the crocodile actually starts taking shape,
mm-hmm,
in scribbly lines. uh,
yeah
and yeah.
yeah and so I mean you can see in this one and I remember reading this thinking to myself like oh man he's gonna go nuts
Yeah.
and
And what I
then he
also,
stops and
yeah,
starts
yeah,
walking away.
yeah,
I'm like, oh
exactly.
man. And then he grabs the
Yeah,
chair.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that
So
is the moment which, and that is why I think it helped me to kind of
mhm,
present the idea that this is not the reality, like
right.
when you have this crocodile face in Danny, and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you see normal, and in the next panel you see the normal face. You have this idea that he's possessed, and then he has calmed down, you know so that kind of helped me set things up for the future issues as well.
Right. Yeah. 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 So like walk me through this one. I think what stands out to me um is I think that like in a lot of like if we just flip back to the one before, um, the outlines that you're using for people are a bit thinner, but then here it's got a thicker look to it. It's like a cartoonist type of illustration, and
Yeah.
then obviously we've got all these different faces coming out. So just talk me through
So this was,
what's happening here.
yeah, this is titled selfie. Uh, so
Oh, okay.
essentially, whenever you take a selfie, you kind of, if you take a selfie of
Hmm.
yourself, you have this hand kind of coming this way, you know. So now you have those, what do you call, um, the front cameras, because of which is it's a little
Mm,
easier. But even then, I mean, when you take the hand kind of comes into the frame. And generally the idea of a selfie is that you present the best of yourself. You smile, you
mhm,
pose in a certain way. There's the pout, there's the and I wanted
mhm.
to, but that in my head that essentially isn't the truth, right? So I wanted
Right.
to present the ugly selfie for myself, that there's
Mm,
this deranged character with all sorts of derangement, and and the
mm,
specs which are meant to look cool are not on the eyes, they are lopsided. And then there is different sort of things, the hat is not in its place, and things are kind of going in and out, almost um, like silicon monsters, the
yeah.
way they design monsters for special effects. So
Yeah.
I kind of, it came from that. So I wanted to present the idea of a deranged selfie. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. And
so
so
that's
do
how
the
it,
specific I was gonna say, do
yeah.
the specific faces, like the different faces, like do each one of them like have any particular meaning behind them, or is it just showing sort of having different views, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so essentially, the idea was that it's the same face but in different expressions.
Mm,
So one is of fear,
okay.
one is of
Mm,
anxiety, one is of horror or whatever, that sort
mhm.
of a thing.
Yeah.
So all of
Oh,
these
okay.
negative emotions kind of taking over in different ways.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's really great. And what is the shirt supposed to say on it? Jaw.
Oh, it's Jawbreaker or something.
Oh, okay. Just
Yeah,
the
I
shirt
think.
that you
Yeah,
decided to go
yeah,
with.
yeah. I think I uh, saw somebody having a T-shirt like that, and I thought that's a cool
That'll work. Yeah.
T-shirt. I would like to. Also,
Yeah.
because if you notice, the jaws and all are distorted, right? So it kind of
Mm,
makes
yeah.
sense to have that sort of name for the T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that does make sense.
Um, I also asked Sam, who he'd like to work with in the future, as well as what his future plans are in comics. So let's hear what he has to say.
And maybe the answer to this is Crocodile Black, but um, but is there a specific comic that you want to make that's like your dream to make? Is it? It could be a specific existing character. It could be, something that you have in mind, like something that you've written yourself, that kind of thing. Anything looking into the future, like this is the dream. This is the end goal for my comic career.
Well, I mean, you said it. I mean, the Crocodile Black was I kind of lucked out with it because
Mhm,
yeah, I don't imagine getting anything which kind of is in that zone, because I like this body horror sort of a thing, and
mhm,
this falling in my lap was definitely something. But yeah, I mean, I've never thought of this question, because I've see, you have to understand that I'm new in comics. I've never
mhm,
really thought of making a comics. I've never dreamt of But now that you've put that
mhm.
question, uh, maybe Scarecrow. I mean, I like Scarecrow as a
Mm.
character, and
Yeah.
I've always fantasized about like uh, Scarecrow putting the idea of uh, kind of taking advantage of Batman's guilt for Harvey Dent, and
Mm.
Batman holding him partially responsible for what happened to Harvey. So he kind of looks into that and projects himself as Harvey and makes Batman the villain. So I don't know if I'm
Mm.
putting it right. Just give me a
No, I mean,
minute.
it makes sense. Yeah, I think I get what
Yeah.
you're saying.
So
Yeah.
he creates this whole illusion where Scarecrow himself becomes Two Face, and he's kind of guilt tripping Batman into becoming the
Mhm.
villain for Gotham. And
Right.
it's all deranged. It's all like right is not right and wrong is not wrong either. You don't really
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. So that
Yeah.
would be fun. But
Yeah. Yeah.
again, I mean, anything horror is something that I would love to do.
Mhm.
Marvel zombies. I don't know if I get a chance
Mm.
to. Uh, I'm an American vampire on the top of my head. I'm just, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, what else? Magic Order, maybe by Mark Miller.
Yeah,
Something is
yeah.
killing the children is obviously, yeah,
Mm.
that's something
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's a big one these days. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
Swamp Thing. Yes,
Swamp
all of
Thing.
these. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I would love to. So these
You,
are
you
these
would
are
you would
all.
crush it on a Swamp Thing book, dude. You
Oh, thank you so much. But
yeah, you would dominate on a Swamp Thing book. That would be fantastic. That's what we
hopefully,
need is we
hopefully
need
this reaches out to DC, and I mean
yes.
they take notice of
So
that. So yeah,
yeah, hopefully DC watches. We need a Rom V Som Swamp Thing book. That's what we
something.
want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. So yeah.
That'd be pretty great to see. But um is there a particular writer that you really want to work with that's out there now? I mean, you've worked with Rom, you've worked with
Yeah,
Phillip Kennedy
Philip.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, are there any other writers in particular that you just think like I think we'd make a really good team and pair together well and that you want to work with?
So honestly, it feels because I'm starting out, it feels a little presumptuous to make a list of people that I would love to work with.
Right.
But I love James Tinian's writing. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
really enjoyed it. And if anything, if I get a chance to collaborate it with him, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that obviously that doesn't mean that I do not want to work with the Ed Brubakers and the Mark Millers of the world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if I faintly hear their name, I'll just give in. I'll sign the contract. I don't even need to hear the story. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of writers that I would love to collaborate with.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if you're able to discuss what future projects do you have coming up? What are you working on now? What should people keep an eye out for?
Okay, so I am starting out on a three issue or on a. I don't know what can I disclose at this point of time because I haven't really had
Okay.
a chance to check with my writers and my publishers. But I think it's safe to say that uh, it's the story of an assassin, and there are
Okay.
some disturbing things in it as well. So it should be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And ex-assassin, a retired assassin sort of a thing, retired John
Okay.
Wick sort of a guy, maybe.
Ah. Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then there is a friend of mine who's also uh, a friend of Ram's. So he
Mm-hmm.
is working on an erotic thriller set in India. So
Okay.
yeah, so he's still in that. He's still developing the idea, but I think
Okay.
we have discussed it a bit, and yeah, seems like a crazy idea. So would love to. I mean, we are on the same page, so that might be the next project after this one. So
Okay. Okay.
mm,
Are you able to say which publisher it's with or no?
I'm not
The first one that
sure.
you.
The first
Okay.
one,
All right.
I'm not sure at this point of time. Should is it okay? I'm not really sure. Like I don't
I
have an issue
I don't want you. Yeah, see, I
disclosing.
don't want you to
Yeah,
say anything you're not allowed to say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want to say anything and get into trouble, that sort of a thing, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really don't know what is allowed here and what is not. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, people can just. I mean, I'm sure if they keep an eye on your Instagram.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you
yeah.
have
There'll
a
be
separate? I don't know. You have a website that you sell your work on, but do you have like a newsletter or anything like that that people can keep
not
an eye
yet,
on
not
or?
yet, not
Okay.
yet. I'm
Okay.
extremely lazy that way.
No,
Also,
no, no,
you
no.
you have to kind of give me a little bit of slack because I've recently got into comics, but I do a lot of animation
Yeah.
as well. So in my free time,
Mm.
I'm working on a short film of my own. So
Oh, okay.
that's also I'm animating it, and I work the old fashioned way where you kind of drew each frame sort of a thing to animate
Oh,
it.
wow. Okay.
So yeah, so that's
Nice.
also something that I'm working on. So because of that, I kind of whenever I'm done with comics and I have some free time,
Mm.
I kind of engage with that. So
Yeah.
I don't really kind of get into the mode of I don't know, but maybe I will set up uh, a a newsletter or something for sure.
Yeah, just I mean,
That's a really good suggestion. Actually, I should do that.
I know a lot of creators will go like kind of crazy with it, and I mean like Kyle Higgins has this newsletter that he emails out, like it's like
Oh
weekly, which
wow.
seems like a lot, but he does the whole like Massiverse, like Radiant Black and like all that stuff. So he
Yeah.
has like 5,000 things in the fire at once. But even just anything, I mean, if people can keep an eye on your Instagram and see if you have something coming up, you're pretty active there in terms of what's going on. So, okay, yeah. I think. Oh, the short film that you're working on though.
Yeah.
Where's that going to be like available? Like where can people watch that
Oh.
whenever it comes
Oh,
out?
I mean, it's going to be a very indie sort of a project, so it's largely going
Mm-hmm.
to circulate on the in the festivals, and
Okay.
then maybe whenever I'm done and after the festival rounds, maybe I'll put it up on my channel, YouTube channel, or that sort of a thing.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay.
If I find a
Cool.
producer and he and a distributor, then maybe we'll have a better deal. But that's something.
Okay.
Thanks so much to Sam for taking the time to speak with me. I was a little delayed on making the recording happen, but he was super understanding. We even had a time mix up because he's over in India, so we have a 13-hour time difference. So he was super flexible about it. It was great. And he's just a great guy, a great artist. So absolutely keep your eyes peeled for his work in the future. Make sure you like the video, make sure that you subscribe, check out my other videos here, and thank you for watching.